Hi, this is Chris. I'm doing a Disciple Tools web form good not great tutorial where I'm just going to walk through at length the bigger picture of how to use the Disciple Tools web form. It can be found at the GitHub Disciple Tools web form repo. You can download the plugin here. Just grab it, download the zip file. This basically the web form can be set up in two different configurations. One is where the web form is driven directly out of Disciple Tools, where you can take the iframe and embed it in any website, and those contacts will flow directly into Disciple Tools. Or if you need more of a security buffer in between your Disciple Tools uh, site and the places you're doing marketing, you can host Disciple Tools on a remote site, the plugin, and drive the actual lead form from that site or to another site, and then the servers will pass the new lead between the external site, the remote site, to Disciple Tools. So this is kind of a layer of security so that you don't have any linking directly back to your Disciple Tools from a public kind of like marketing website. Anyways, those two basic configurations. So what I'm going to show today is mostly the remote site connected to the Disciple Tools site and the lead forms that you can generate from it. So here's a remote site, just a basic WordPress site. And here's the back end of that. When I've take and add the plugin for Disciple Tools web form, I add new, put it in here, and it will generate these two links or two tabs on the side for the web form. This is the, let's put it here. So this is my Disciple Tools site, and here's my list of contacts. I'm going to make a filter here that says contacts created, and we'll say today. Filter those contacts. So now I have a fresh list. We can be able to see contacts coming in. And then I've got my site linking the back end of this Global Zume community site. This is the front end of the Global Zume community site. And here's my remote local and the back end of remote local, and then the front end, which doesn't matter as much. So as you plug in a brand new web form plugin, you'll get this starting page, which says you can't use this plugin until you connect it to a Disciple Tools site. So it's now, this new version 3 is very dependent on being linked up to the site. So I would go to the site links, which is this down here, and I'm going to create a new site link. We're going to call this is remote to DT web form link. And I'm going to add this site, and I'm going to add the other one, global Zume community .local. So the .local just means I'm running it on my local machine, and I'm going to select the create contacts permission type. Publish this. Then I'm going to grab and copy the token, and I'm going to go over to the global site, global Zume site. I'm going to add a new site link. This is where I'm building the link between these two sites. This is from remote web form. Obviously you can call it whatever you like. I'm going to clear out the token that's generated, paste in the token that I got from the remote site that I started. And I'm going to click these to quick add, and I'm going to follow the same pattern I used on the other side. I could put remote on the bottom or on the top. It doesn't matter as long as the pattern of these three is the same. And then I'm going to check create contacts as the permission I'm going to give it. I'm going to publish. For more security, you can actually if you know the IP address of where the site's coming from, you can lock it down even further by adding a IP address requirement. So this is again my local machine. So that is something I'll ignore because SSL on a local machine is kind of a headache. And so moving back, so now if I go back here, refresh, this site should be linked up. Good, yep, linked, so we're linked together. And so now I can go to the web form, and it's going to say, hey, looks like you got at least one to pick from. I'm going to pick the remote link that I just made, save it, and now the web form is basically online, so it's connected. The map box is not connected. That's an upgrade that I'll show how to do. But these are the Disciple Tools fields that are available over here on the Disciple Tools instance. So I can find those by going to Settings, down to Custom Fields, and I've made a handful of fields here, but you can scroll on down and see all of the fields available, and they won't be the same amount of fields. Some are quite filtered out, but these are the ones where we have supported in the contacts area the ability to publish publicly and let people select from. So okay, so then we go to forms, and I'm going to create a new form out on the remote page here. New form. We'll call this new form, new web form. Very creative. And we're going to go publish. Publishing that's going to now open up all of the different sections of the web form, and these are also collapses so we can see them all. So you have the form details, form core fields, the extra fields, the form appearance, the demo, and the localized section. Over here on the side you have embed code, administrative notes, and form styles. And then you have your publishing. So let me walk through these real quick. The form details, you define basically this is for future development, so it's just whatever it is. You can grab a user from the Disciple Tools. This is one that we didn't set up a linking to. So I can go to the admin area, which is actually right here, and I could go find a user potentially. So if I want to grab a user, I can click on it, and I can actually just find their user ID up here. It's one of the faster ways to find it. And we'll go back to here, and I could put in that user, and now that user is going to receive all contacts coming from this form. So they're like the dispatcher for this form. Then this is the sources. These are the sources defined over in Disciple Tools. So if I go to Disciple Tools, Settings, Fields, and I look in the contacts area, and I go down and find sources. Here I select, I can see that these are the sources available inside Disciple Tools, and when I go back here I'll see those same sources. So I can say this particular one is coming from the Zume Vision website, and so now it'll come in and be tagged with that source. And you can define, because it's already being assigned to a user, I can say this is now waiting to be accepted is the new status that it'll come in as. It'll skip right over the earlier dispatching steps. Okay, so then the next section is core fields. So this is your core title, name, phone, email, and description. So if I wanted to do, here's a little, I'll open up. Here's your embed code that you can use to embed in various websites. You can also click this open form window. Oops, let me do a quick save. Get this form ID established. So I click and open a new form window, and I can actually see the form here raw. So this is what gets embedded basically. So over here I can say I can modify these pieces. Greetings. Not that you'd ever do that, but I save this, and now you can see I'm influencing basically the web form greetings. So you have your title section. You can add a little below that. This you can actually add in. This allows you to do multilingual, so you can say for the name field, we'll call that whatever language translation you want. And then phone, same thing. These labels act as a translatable field. They're defaulted with language, or you can modify them. You can also modify their requirement. So what that looks like is you can see phone and name are required. So over here, if I try to submit now, it's going to tell me, nope, these are required. And I can basically change that requirement here. Or I can hide them. So either way. But they're the standard core fields of a lead form. And so then the next section has to do with the extra fields. And this is a fairly large section. It's very intricate what you can do. So, but I'll start with, you can add disciple tools fields. So these are fields that are available in disciple tools system. You can add a location field, which requires the Mapbox key, which I'll do in a little bit. You can add design elements like horizontal rulers or other labels or other title sections, or break up the form that way. And you can add other fields that'll just go into the comments section of the contact. So maybe you want to ask a few particular poll kind of questions, and then those would be stuffed into the comments area of a contact. So on this side. So let me walk through these real quick. The disciple tools field is I can go and grab all of these that are available. So these are preferred contact methods. So if I go back to disciple tools and I look inside of the fields, I can find my preferred. So these are fields that I created. So they're not by default. They're just things that I created by creating new field and making those. So I called it preferred language. I said these are languages that will prefer to talk to you in. And then over here, that's what's wiring into this. So I'm going to go preferred language. It pulls in that from the other side. Now I can modify the label, preferred language, please. And I can save this. I can also make it modified. I can pre-select the first element. So maybe I want it not to be pre-selected. I want them. So let me update that. And so when I go over to the contact form now, I should see preferred language, please. It's not a selected, so it adds the little like not selected first piece, but I can make it selected. Okay, so that's basically the same way you would add all of these text field on contacts. So I can change the label, allows me to save it, and I start building my form, right, with disciple tools elements. Then over under design element, same thing, simple. You just add, I say maybe I want a header at the bottom, which makes no sense, but we'll just go for it. And I'll add another design element, which is like a divider, and so that one doesn't have anything to configure. And then I'll add a final new label, custom label. Obviously I'm not taking any effort to make this pretty, but you can see how you do have the ability to kind of make this form, break it up into areas, make it a longer form if that's part of your goal, even a poll, kind of design it that way. And then you have other fields. So these fields are going to be like, maybe you just want to ask a certain question, thoughts on life, right? Or something like that. You can also require these. I can change the order and say, you know what, I want this thoughts on life to go, so everything's set up here at once. So maybe I'll take everything, and everything goes after. I'll just call everything 5, 6, 7, 8, and another 8, and who cares. And then now number 1 is going to be thoughts on life. And so I'm going to save that. It will reorder according to your order there, and also reorder over here on the on this area. So thoughts on life. It always comes behind these core fields. It's just kind of by default. Then you basically have those fields. So now the add location field, I'll save for the end. I'll come back to it. You have form appearance, so your default is wide heavy, but I can actually have no appearance, and which strips out all the styling here. Okay, you're like, why would you do that? Well, you can actually override and default here, this custom CSS. I can actually style every single one of the fields. They're all formatted with so if you have like a web designer, they would be able to move in and actually style this. Each section has specific names and can be given definitions of their style. So again, that may be over the top, and it's easier for you maybe to just use like one of the default styles. Or even if you use a default style like this, so I'll turn it back, get the default style in place, I can actually override some of it. And so say I want everything that has the title, I'm going to add color red, because that's something I like. I want a lot of red, something like that. There we go. So now everything with the title is going to be red. Okay, so you see how basically we can override. You can start with the basic theme weight, and then you can modify. You can also modify, and you will need to, because this is an iframe. Here's a demo section. I like to avoid any kind of scrolling, so if you have a super long one, long form, you're going to want to add pixels height. So say I want to make it really tall. Bam. Then I go down here, and you can see now it doesn't scroll. It pushes a permanent height to this form. Okay, and you can actually disable the form. So just click disable, and that form will not delete. You don't have to delete it. You can, but it will just disable the form. So for whatever reason. Okay, now about the mapping. So let me go back to settings. In the mapping section, box.com. This is based on OpenStreetMaps, but it's kind of a really nice company in between that allows you to come get an account for free. There's a very generous free layer, more than enough. And you can come create a token, and just by Webform token, create that token, API, paste that token in, add it, and it will go successfully connected to selected source. And that is super good, because then when you go back here to the web form, now you can add the, I better enable the form. I kind of left it disabled. Enable form. Alright, so I can come and add a location field, and this location, you can say, what is your address or city? Question mark. So I'm going to add this search field. I want to put it towards the top because I want them to add it quick. So I'm going to say, all right, now I've got my location field here towards the top. What is your address city? I'm going to go to my form. It's no longer disabled. And I'm going to see my, what is your search city? So New York. You can see the little widget running. I can come and select New York. And then that in the background, now that I go from here, everything should be set up and hooked up. So test form submit. I'm going to give it a phone number of some kind. Email's not required. Text field, preferred language, I'll call French. And thoughts on life. Thoughts on life are minimal. Okay. So anyways, so let's go ahead and submit this. Submit. And did we get a success? And then I can go over here and see, look for my New contact. Contact is added. Submit form, submit. Test form, submit. And you can see a few things. So for one, I've got a source form. It's telling me where it came from, the IP address it came from. I said key select was French. Actually, I thought it was, yeah, French is down here. So it added it both as a comment, but it also pre-selected this down here. And what was the other one we did? Select languages, English. Huh, interesting. So, but you also got the phone number, and source was web, and then you've got locations. And so I can actually go in here and see that I've got a pre-select location, and that actually will show up in the mapping metrics and some of the other things. So you can be able to look at this through geography. So that's the last form. You actually have over here a notes on this form just for the admin to remember where this is or what they're doing with it, how many places they've embedded it. This is just for right here, so you can keep notes on it. And then the final section is to localize at the back end. Required. So I can localize and translate basically a few of these default things like success, submit, characters required, those kind of things. Okay, and so that is my good, not great walkthrough on the new web form.